Howdy, my name is Fabian, and I'll be doing a presentation over brood pheromones with John Gonzalez.
Hello, y'all.
The European honeybee and many other insects, but in our case Apis mellifera, uses pheromones to communicate a plethora of information to the rest of the colony. Pheromones are usually chemical signals that communicate information that are interpreted by the rest of the colony. These pheromones can be caste-specific and serve many different purposes. A couple of examples include QMP, brood pheromone, which is what we're doing here, and 2-heptanone.
The overview of brood pheromones. The brood pheromone is a blend of fatty esters which is produced and released by the brood, which is more commonly known as the larvae. This pheromone is mainly the priority of the larvae itself, but the workers are tasked with taking care of the brood. Not all workers, though, are focused on rearing brood, as there are many tasks to be done around the colony. Yet the entire colony is affected by the pheromone nonetheless. This makes the brood pheromone a pretty important factor in determining the growth and productivity of a hive. How nurse bees respond to the pheromone. Brood pheromone is also used to communicate to the nurse bees from the larvae of the deprivation they are experiencing. In a study by Bradley Norman Metz, he explored the variation of responses to the brood pheromone. It was observed that deprived or in-need brood were tended to much more often than those who were healthy. This was seen to be most likely due to a mix of the pheromone referring to how much of each of the 10 fatty esters were present. The brood pheromone also happens to cause physical changes to the nurses. These effects were displayed in the study conducted by Lizette Alice Peters, observing the effect of pollen diet and honeybee premier pheromones on worker bee food producing glands. The study found that the brood pheromone increased the size of the mandibular gland protein secretion of the nurse bees, and the size also increased when there was no queen present in the hive.
Another group that also responds to this brood pheromone are foragers and queens. The brood pheromone elicits different responses. One of the main responses is pollen foraging. A large presence of brood pheromone causes an increase in pollen foraging from foragers to maintain the brood healthy and fed. The foragers also are observed to bring in larger weights of pollen along with an increase in the amount of pollen trips in a given interval of time. The age of foragers is another thing that brood pheromone can change. Depending on the levels of pheromone present, the age of foragers can be seen to rise or lower to accommodate the presence of brood. The queen is also affected in the presence of brood pheromone. The queen interprets the brood pheromone as a signal that the environment has the right conditions for proper brood development. Queens in a large presence of brood pheromone have been seen to actively be seeking empty cells to lay her eggs in for longer periods of time. These behaviors were witnessed and documented in an experiment performed by Ramesh R. Sagili and Tanya Pankiw. They believe that the increase of egg laying was directly due to the brood pheromone, but also caused by the protein-rich diet fed to the queen by the retinue workers, which was also induced by the brood pheromone discussed previously by John. And this is a list of the sources we gather all our information from. And thank you very much.
Thank y'all.